All righty. Good afternoon. This is David Perlman, and
I am Heather Cox, aka Sally from Nightmare Before Christmas.
Halloween. I hear the children in the background. Would you
Oh
like to
yes,
introduce
good
Max?
times over here.
Heather?
What was
Oh,
that?
we have too much fun. Would you
Yeah.
like to introduce Max?
Yes, I would love to introduce Max. Max, he must slightly enjoy working with me, or he wouldn't have agreed to a last minute join of the meeting. But we are very fortunate to have Max, who's the Senior Program Manager for Microsoft Teams, and he helps so many of my customers. And we said, hey, what amazing things could you share that would be really relevant to this group? And student safety in Microsoft Teams is relevant to everyone. So Max, we're going to turn it over to you, and Dave and I will just give you the whole floor for the next half hour.
All right, sounds good. Thanks for having me, everyone. Again, my name is Max Fritz. I am part of the Teams product group for education, Senior Program Manager there, and excited to share with you guys some recent updates, some coming changes, and some realistic guidance on how you can manage student safety in Microsoft Teams. I understand we've got IT pros here, we've got potentially some teachers here as well. There'll be a little bit of something for everybody. But what I'll tell you is, because I believe I've got about 25 minutes with a little bit of time for questions at the end, this is the tip of the iceberg. So I'm going to show you some great videos, resources, articles, things where you can go to learn more. And feel free to engage with your Microsoft account team. I'm on Twitter. Easy way to get in touch with me, the Cloud Sherpa. Give me a follow, send me a message, send me a tweet if you want to engage further. Let's go ahead and get started. So, you guys are probably well aware of this, but we are rapidly seeing change in Microsoft Teams for education and overall in Microsoft Teams. We've got some more statistics and numbers that are coming out. Actually, they may have came out yesterday with all the quarterly updates and stuff like that to the stock market. But this is what I've got to share with you guys today. We have well over 183,000 institutions across the world using Teams. And we actually now, as education, represent almost half of all Teams usage worldwide. So education is extremely important to Microsoft as always, but it's in the top of our mind as we are developing new features and really pushing the boundaries of what Teams can do. But why am I presenting this topic specifically to you guys right now? Well, because COVID-19 has brought out all sorts of interesting scenarios for our educators where they're trying to focus on teaching as much as possible, but at the same time, they have to understand new technology, and there's just less time to monitor student behavior, and it's less easy to monitor student behavior. You can't go and say, Bobby, it's time to go to the principal's office as easily as you can when you're in person. So we're going to talk today about some of the Microsoft Teams controls that exist to ensure student safety is present, excuse me, while remote learning. So first, let's take a look at some of the stuff that's recently been released. And this is just some of the highlights. This is not everything. But we now have, as we've been talking about for a while, oops, clicked too many times. Let's go back, something got screwed up there. There we go. We have a student lobby, which is available for you guys to use today. Organizer-only meeting start, educator-led team creation, student well-being, a reflect application. We have technology called communication and compliance. You can now control custom backgrounds. Educators can now hard audio mute, tons of functionality. We're going to dive into each of these a little bit more in detail, but what you're seeing here on the left-hand side is what the educators can do to change the settings in their own meetings. And on the right-hand side, you're seeing what the IT pros can do to configure defaults ahead of times or set limitations. I promise we'll dive into each of these a little bit more deeply, but if you have questions while I'm going, feel free to put them in the chat, because I'm sure a lot of people are going to have questions and we're not going to have too much time. So I want to get to the most pressing things once we're done. So throw them in while we're going. Maybe I'll address them as we go along. Now, before we dive into the Teams features and stuff like that, I want to impress one thing again upon you guys really importantly, and that is using identity security practices. We're not going to spend too much time talking about it today, but Office 365 has multi-factor authentication capabilities Many of you might own some of the advanced identity management capabilities through Microsoft or through any other party. Make sure the student is who they say they are, whether it's a multi-factor prompt or using a school issued device or whatever it might be. Students, just like us, reuse passwords, use easily guessable passwords, different things like that. And we got to make sure that beyond just them putting in their password, they are really who they say they are. All right, now let's talk about Teams specifically. And first up, the Teams meeting lobby. So this is commonly seen as just, a nice way to admit people into a meeting like we do in these meetings here today. You joined and you probably were waiting for somebody like Heather or David or myself to admit you. But it's also a security barrier to your meeting. Only organizers and presenters in the meeting, which we'll go over in just a minute, the difference between those, can let people into a meeting. The way we envision this in education is that the instructors, whether teachers, whatever, teaching assistants, whatever they might be, those are set as the organizers and presenters, and they're the ones who are able to admit people. We strongly recommend for any education class session that we set only me as the lobby option type. This is configurable per individual meeting and at the IT admin setting for defaults for your users. So let's take a look at what those meeting roles are, though. So meeting roles are organizer, presenter, and attendee. Now, one of these roles is special, and that's the organizer role. The organizer role can never be changed. That's who created the meeting originally. But almost every single functionality that the organizer has, the presenter also has. And therefore, we can set up teaching assistants and whoever, maybe substitute instructors, and we can configure a presenter to have those functionalities as well. One exception that we're rolling out very soon is called breakout rooms. Breakout rooms are only going to be available to the organizer, but we plan to very, very quickly allow presenters to set up, configure breakout rooms as well. Now, here's the key to all of this. Is I know that a lot of you are asking questions about teaching assistants and substitutes and things like that, but let's focus on the teachers versus the student, because that's the big win here, is that your students, if we look at all of these different things, a student should not be able to mute other people. They should not be able to remove participants. They sure shouldn't be able to admit people from the lobby, all sorts of things like that. And that's why we need our students to be attendees. And there's a key component to that where you're going to want to set ahead of time. Let's go to our previous screenshots. Actually, you know what? Let's go to my demo environment and let's show you guys how to configure who's going to be an attendee and who's going to be a presenter ahead of time before the meeting starts. So we'll open up my demo here and we'll go in, we'll schedule a quick little meeting. This can be in a team, this can be an ad hoc meeting like I'm doing right now, it doesn't matter. Let's add in a couple individuals in here. Let's add Alex and Adele. And perfect, let's send that out. Now I open up my test meeting. And forgive me because this is a demo environment, it's a little low on resources. I have a meeting options button. I click on that meeting options button and it will give me my meeting options ahead of time. Now, I know a lot of you have a question, and I'm happy to share with you that meeting options sometime in the near future is going to be a tab up here so that I don't have to open a new window for that. But right here, I can set ahead of time who can bypass the lobby. So it's a class meeting, I only want me to bypass the lobby, and who can present. I'm going to set that to only me as well. Or if I have a substitute or a teaching assistant joining me as well, I would specify them here. And that's how we set our meeting attendees and presenters. Now, if let's say I'm a little late on it, I screwed up and somebody becomes a presenter and they should have been an attendee or vice versa, or let's say a student is going to present their project, I can promote them to a presenter. And I'm going to show you our meeting right here, right now. I can hover over somebody's name, and make them an attendee or make them a presenter as necessary. Quite easily. Now let's talk about some of those defaults of how we change what is shown to these teachers so they don't have to go into every meeting option and change things at all times. So that is where we set up what we call Teams policies. Policies allow you to enforce a desired Teams experience and at times and really force that experience to be the only experience. Sometimes it's setting a default, sometimes it's setting limitations. They're assigned to users and allow you as an IT admin to customize the experience for those users. Now, if a user doesn't have a specific policy that you custom created, they get assigned a global policy. Otherwise, they get assigned the policy that you custom created for them. Some policies have a few individual settings that can be checked via PowerShell, but most of them, it's all configurable via our Teams Admin Center. So we have 5 different assignment methods. You can assign it to an individual, a group. Not all policies support groups yet, more on that later. You can use a package type, and you can assign in batch. Now we're going to focus on group-based assignment here. And before we dive into the policies, I want to show you how we've designed this to work in education. Because what we've seen based on our statistics and analytics is the way we designed it isn't the way it's being used. And we think we could fix a lot of your problems that you might be encountering if you follow this guidance, and upcoming winter break might be the right time to make this change. This may be a shock to you, but the way we recommend this and the way we build things is your global policy should be assigned to the students. And the reason why is because the students are, in theory, your largest audience. It's the largest group of people within your school, within your organization. And therefore, they should get the default policy that's assigned to everybody by default because they're the most restrictive in terms of what we want to present them. If we're going to disable them from creating meetings or teams, if we're going to disable them from using certain functionalities in a meeting or certain functionalities within the Teams client, we want that to be the default. But then your educators and your staff, they can have custom policies that vary from the default. So let me show you what I mean there. We're going to open up my Teams Admin Center here by going to admin.teams.microsoft.com. Of course, I got signed out.
You have multi-factor turned on, Max?
No, not in my demo tenant.
Okay, I had to ask.
You guys go ahead and hack into this away. I'll go delete it. I'll start anew. But yes, you should turn on multi-factor. Always do that. Do what I say, not what I do. So I'm going to go in here and let's just take a look at the meetings policies, because that's the one that we see most commonly edited anyways. There's a lot of policies in here. Actually, you know what? This is a terrible example. Let me open up the chat policies because I've customized this one a little too far anyways. So messaging policies, here we go. So you won't see this educator, primary student, or any of these other ones. These are special ones, but you will see the global org-wide default. This is the one that you want to be assigned to all your students. Once you start customizing it, we won't change it back. This will go to all students, and then you create a custom second policy, which should go to your faculty and staff, or if you want to break it a bit further, you can do that as well. Okay. I'm going to quickly just double check the chat. There's a lot of questions in there. And actually, you know what? Heather and David seem to be on top of it. So I'm going to leave the chat for now. But Heather and David, if there are any, if there are any complex questions that you guys can't answer, point them out to me so that I can get on those ones as well.
Okay, we're trying here, but and just so everybody knows, remember I told you at the beginning my computer might die, so I'm going to end up not checking questions soon.
Your computer in my hair. So I'd rather get through the content, and then we'll leave a little bit of time at the end.
Good.
Try to pull out the most salient questions instead of stopping every time. But Go
Yeah.
ahead and we'll try to get to what we can. And then maybe after the fact, you can come back and just place some of the answers in the chat if we haven't gotten to them. Max, that would be awesome.
Sounds good. So what I have in front of you here is our very broad stroked guidance for what policies might want to look like for primary school students and staff and educators in that environment as well. It's going to be different in higher ed. And to be honest, for each one of you K-12 institutions out there, you're probably going to have different pieces there as well. You might look at this and take issue with something I say, you know what, we tried that, it didn't work, Max, and XYZ. That's okay. That's why we let you customize these. I do have an article which I'm going to show you, which we pulled all this information from, and it will dive deeper in of why we recommend these different policies. But because we only have a short amount of time today, we're not going to dive too much deeper into this. There is one other thing that you should look at changing for your environment, and that is going to depend on if you're K-12 or higher ed and what your institution is just like. And that's controlling who can create teams. So normally, to create a team, you would click join or create a team at the bottom, and you have a create a team option. This is what we recommend for staff, educators, and even higher ed students, because higher ed students in general need less supervision and have a lot more student clubs and organizations that they have without representation of faculty staff. That being said, the one thing that I'll stand strong on is for primary school students, those K-12 students, they should not be able to create teams. If they're able to create teams, that gives them an unsupervised environment to do things that could potentially be unsafe or harmful to each other. Now, let's talk about how do we catch things if none of this caught it already? Let's say somehow a student in a meeting said something inappropriate and a teacher didn't catch it, or in their class team they did something like that. And that's where communications compliance comes in. Now, I'm not here to sell you something today, but it is part of your A5 licensing. If you own that, if you don't, it's available ad hoc. But if you have communications compliance, this is something you really want to implement, because it's a reactive measure that will allow you to find hurtful, negative, or harmful content within Teams messages and Teams chats. IT admins can delegate this control to somebody else, but usually IT will automatically look at those content and they can review it, flag it, and send it to maybe a principal or an administrator or a teacher, or delete it, or delete it. And then these reports can be taken to other people as well. Now, as we're wrapping up here, let me talk about how do we learn more and what's coming that's going to make all of this even better. So first and foremost, when I was on our policy slide before, which showed you all the recommended policies, we have some brand new guidance for administrators and educators. If you're ahead of me, it's technically a month old. I'm still calling it brand new. It shows you step-by-step walkthroughs of exactly how to control meetings, conversations, chat, everything like that. So if you go to aka.ms/meeting safety educator, and we're going to open this together here, just one moment. Let's go back here. aka.ms/meeting safety educator. This is a link that you can send. By the way, if you use that aka link, it'll bring you straight to the For Educators section. This is something you can send to all of your educators if you're an IT pro. If you're an educator here, this is perfect for you as well. That give you step-by-step things that you can do to create safe and controlled class meetings and safe and controlled class teams and channels. As an IT pro, you can click on For Administrators, and we will give you step-by-step controls to set up whatever feature you want. Awesome, right? And if you need more quick guidance, here's where all that information came from before. So here's some quick guidance on the different policies and our recommendations for them. Now, I know everybody loves when Teams Engineering joins a call because we talk about what's coming next. So let's take a quick little peek into that. So today, hard mute is already a functionality, as in if I'm in this meeting as a meeting presenter, I can click a button and I can say don't allow attendees to unmute themselves, and that will force all of you to be on mute. But coming very soon, when we do that, we're going to be able to reuse the hand raise feature to request to speak. So your students, when they're hard muted, can raise their hands, and you can virtually call on them by clicking their name, which allows them to unmute themselves and ask their question or speak without you turning off the hard mute for the entire team's meeting or class. Also, on the student safety side, this is just student safety coming soon, by the way, we have whiteboard read-only mode. So if you're presenting a whiteboard to your class and you don't want them to be able to draw or write inappropriate content on said whiteboard, you can put it into read-only mode. I put breakout rooms in here because it's something that I'm talking about 10 times a day. While it's not entirely student safety related. Something that's really cool very soon, though, is the ability to control meeting chat. So you'll see down here, allow meeting chat is set to enabled. This can be changed so that you on the fly during a meeting or before the meeting can turn on and off meeting chat as you like. And you can also set it to only allow meeting chat during the meeting, which means once the meeting is over, students won't be able to pop in there and abuse the meeting chat without you being actively moderating it. We're also working on bringing some great features such as invite-only meetings so that you don't have to worry about the lobby sort of situation. You invite your students and they're the only people who are allowed to join. That's expected to come out later this year or early next. And in the next couple of months, meeting options in your meeting without having to pop open a web, which will look like this. Much, much more at aka.ms/Teams roadmap. And I'm going to finish things off, excuse me, with a few resources that I'd recommend hitting up for more information. First of all, aka.ms/education blog. We post commonly and frequently on there, but we always do a monthly post. We started this earlier in 2020 and we've kept it going. And we are planning to post our end of month post here in just a day or two. It's expected to go out tomorrow, if not on Monday at the latest. And our monthly posts always say, here's what we did this month, here's what's new, and here's what's coming. So there's going to be some sneak peeks into what's coming for Teams. If you want to learn more about Teams in education, go to education.microsoft.com. Our help center is not like the old days of Microsoft help menus. It is always up to date, always with the latest features. We are always publishing new content there. Check it out. You can also get there by clicking the help button in Teams. And last but not least, if there is something that you saw today that you wish worked different, looks different, have an issue with, hit up user voice, because we do look very carefully at what the community is saying. I wish Teams was like this, or I wish Teams could do that. All right, that was a whirlwind. We've got 5 minutes left for questions. I'm gonna hit up.
You did an awesome job whirlwinding through that.
Thank you.
Let me, I'm going to stop the recording here real quick. If we could, just, it might be a little bit easier as people if they're coming off mute and so forth. So stop. Oh, I'm going to try that again. Stop recording. All righty.